What's up, folks? Welcome back. Welcome back to the Auto Trends podcast. I am your host, Gideon Williams. Lucas Welk, 2W. We're back in action. It has been a wild week, busy week. I can tell you personally, it's been a busy week for me. Got now 2 kids, and I'm gonna tell you, this household is blowing the fuck up. I am like, holy shit, kids are really busy. My daughter took a shit all over the bathroom 2 days in a row. And all I want to do is talk about automotive.
Right.
Problem.
Yes, a major problem. I have none of those problems actually at this point in time. So I'm living on my own. It's very peaceful. It's very quiet. I sleep like a baby. So I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, I suppose.
Fly over there and kick your door in.
Yes. Yeah. But you're having a lot more fun. I mean, you probably have a lot more fun.
Man, my daughter went in, rolled in, she took a dump, man, had a big fat turd right on the fucking toilet seat. Like 3 of them. And then she proceeded to take the shit and freaking rub it all over her body.
Well,
what the fuck?
As you do.
I mean, I get freaky too, but good Lord. I'm telling you, and it's creating a busy life for Gideon Williams. But I'm not a complainer because I know they're blessings and I love them very much. And you got to be patient. So.
Yes.
Regardless, I don't know why I had to get that off my chest, but folks, very exciting time yet again. Episode 38, Lucas. Hey.
Yep. Huge. We're getting up there. We're getting 38. Up there. We should be. I mean, if I'm doing quick math, we'll be around 50. I think by the end of the year, should be darn close to 50 anyway.
Yeah, at least.
So that's exciting.
We typically look at it once a week, sometimes twice, depending if we have guests. Hey, if you guys want to be on the Auto Trends podcast, come on.
Yeah,
give us a shout out, man.
Yeah, go to wautogroup.com. Check out our different sponsorship packages. Our magazine's being released this month. Lots of exciting stuff happening.
Hey, how about Team Builder?
Team Builder is going to be exciting. Outsourcing opportunities through 2W. That's a new division we're launching actually this week. I don't think we have the information yet on the website, but by end of week, it'll be up there.
Talk a little bit about that, Lucas. I know you're out in the Philippines. Right. You know, you got a place out there. Got the beautiful Canadian accent that kind of puts a little bit of a nice accent on things. But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I
mean, we're building their teams out in there.
Absolutely. No, we're partnering with another organization as well, who we're going to have the CEO and president of that organization on probably in a couple of weeks from now. But basically, what we're going to be offering as part of our services is outsourced staffing, essentially. So it's kind of like it's 100% automotive focus. So if you're a small automotive company, right to large manufacturers, and you're looking to build an outsourced team, an international team, we can definitely assist you with that. Everything from sales to customer service to development to web development to a whole whack of different things. I can't even get into it all because it'll take up the whole episode, but definitely stay tuned on our website. But this is going to be a massive launch for us and a big new division, I think, for 2W. So,
yeah, I think it's exciting.
Great partners. Yeah.
No, I think it's really exciting, and I think the biggest thing, because I've been in this space for many years, and profitability is key. You got to have it run a profitable business, and when we start to look at labor, you start to look at North America, South America, you look at international teams, you look at I really believe a hybrid model is a very effective model. You know, and so, you know, living wages around the world are different. And so that really just leverages yourself from a profitability perspective. But I think one big gap is automotive has struggled in that area to have that automotive talent, right? And I think it's really critical to have and be able to build a team with that automotive focused talent. With you sitting, you know, out of that office, I think that's a really prime relationship. So yeah, more to come on that. No need to get into it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. And the nice thing is we're really, you know, expanding it with 2W very internationally. You know, our clients are not only anymore from, you know, the US, North America, Canada, South America. Really, it's expanding a lot to, you know, to the Middle East, even, you know, Southeast Asia a lot. So it's great, you know, now that we're building these teams kind of around the world, kind of gives different dynamics, you know, in each demographic. There's different stuff going on. You know, the car industry here in Southeast Asia is much different, obviously, than what it looks like in the US. So if you're a company looking to expand internationally and you need that knowledge, that's something certainly now we can provide.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Awesome. More to come on that. And we look forward to that episode. But yeah, like, subscribe, guys. Again, we're here to support the industry, voice of the industry. We kicked this thing off 20 or the beginning of this year. And it's really been awesome to see it just evolve and grow and take off on different worlds. I have such a love for this industry for whatever reason. I don't know
Yep.
why, but I do. I love it. And but I'll tell you, it's some exciting stuff. And one thing I think that is interesting too, that everybody really should be acutely aware of is Advanced Auto Parts. A big retailer. I don't know if you saw that in the news. I've known about it at least for a while. Had some inside knowledge, but not an inside knowledge. Just I sensed it was coming. Yeah, whatever. But you look at Advanced Auto Parts again. If you don't know who they are, if you're a global listener, Advanced Auto Parts is a top 4 big box retailer, like an AutoZone and kind of a Napa, but they have a parts store, retail storefront on almost every on corner. So they're very large. But what I found interesting is they just announced a press release formally, the sale of WorldPac to Carlyle at a $1.5 billion price tag. So I think that's something worth talking about, right? Because that's a big move, big nut.
Yep.
And when you sell off your distribution arm of a business that is a monster arm, I think that's it says something, and I think it's worth talking about it.
No, absolutely, 100%. No, that was very interesting. And even, we were talking before we got on this call, the key market insights. We were looking at the global aftermarket size was valued at, and we touched this a little bit last time, but almost 419 billion. And that's in 2023, and the market is projected to grow from roughly 430 billion in 2024 all the way to 568 billion by 2032. So in less than 10 years, let's say within the next 8 years, that's a massive jump. You're looking, what is that, $138 billion.
Well, yeah. Well, and I think, huge. And I think whenever you start to look at the size of the market, and I think that's why this is really impactful. What I find so automotive is like, it's a very large market, right? I mean, $430 billion global. I think the U.S. market is around 137 on a 3.5% CAGR. Compounded annual growth rate. But I think we're only going to see that. And what we've talked a lot about, Lucas, is the hybrid and the EV model, right? We're seeing a pullback on automakers with the EV. We're seeing investments start to kind of go belly up, right? Oh, we're not seeing the profitability. We're not seeing the consumer adoption. And everyone's shifting back to the hybrid model, which in my opinion, going to the hybrid model will actually protect the automotive parts industry for another at least 20 years, right? Because we talk about it, right? There's 2 to 3, sometimes 4,000 parts that are replaceable on an internal combustion engine versus an electric vehicle. It's less than 60.
Yep.
That's interesting.
No, exactly. It is. And what's going to drive that growth as well? That huge increase. What are those parts going to be? What are these aftermarket parts going to be? And I think, we kind of know what they're going to be, but I think it's going to be a lot more push on, not the more basic things, but looking at EVs and hybrids. You're looking at the tires, the batteries, the brakes, the filters, navigation systems, audio systems, cosmetic upgrades. You're going to start to see how many parts, Gideon, does an EV car have? What was, we looked at it before on average.
So depending on the automaker, again, it'll vary automaker to automaker based on their design, but under 60.
Right.
Under 60.
Right. And the parts now, I think on an average vehicle, what was it? If you're including the nuts and the bolts and the whole bit, it was something wild.
Up to 4,000. So anywhere from 2 to 4,000 independent pieces. Because if you think about it, the spark plugs, the seals, how many little seals, right? Gaskets, rotors and pads and kits and bolts and nuts. I mean, that's substantial, right? All that needs to be replaced. And that's supported by the aftermarket and the OE, obviously.
And it's going to be interesting to see how are these manufacturers going to deal with kind of this, gradual sort of switch from the conventional, model vehicles to these EVs, and how are they going to, transition their plants, their manufacturing facilities to accommodate these new cars will be interesting, I think, within the next few years, because it will be a somewhat rapid change. And there's, in my own opinion, there's going to be a few guys that get, rather left behind, that aren't going to, they're going to be the Kodaks, when digital cameras were coming in and everybody was progressing towards these digital cameras, and, Kodak decided, nah, that's not going to happen. We're just going to kind of stick around, do what we're doing. And I think you're going to see that in the next few years as well.
Well, so this is actually why I think this is an interesting sale, kind of to what you just said. So when we look at Advanced Auto Parts, they're in the automotive retail business, right? Like they are, think of them as they have a retail front, and then they have these hubs that support that product, right? It's a distribution model. But if we just take a step back, okay, let me actually take another step back. Who is WorldPac? If you don't know who WorldPac is, I'll explain it to you. They are a warehouse distributor, right? They intake OE and aftermarket parts as a warehouse distributor, and then they distribute it from their locations across the country. They're a traditional warehouse distributor owned by Advanced Auto Parts, did $2.1 billion in sales with $100 million on moving to the EBITA. That's a good business model, right?
Right.
I would look at it. My guess, if I had to take a guess, their gross profit margin on a blended average is probably 28 to 32%. That would be my guess. But what I find interesting is that they were purchased by Carlyle, which is a very large publicly traded company, right? They have, I have to look. I think I read it somewhere. Was it like 400 million? Of asset. Yeah, they're very large. I mean, this is what they do, right? But I think when you look at it, I'm trying to understand why they would make that move, right? I'm actually kind of confused why Advance would sell with the WorldPac, because WorldPac has a good brand. Now they are living on some archaic technology, like they haven't really been very forward, which that's very common in the distribution and automotive. Very, 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 very. That's common. But what I find interesting is when we look at the market, we look at the CAGR, we look at the bigger picture. Advance is in the automotive business, but it literally says this sale simplifies Advance's enterprise structure and sharpens the focus on a blended box business, the box retailers, right? The box stores. So let's go deeper. Who's the CEO? Shane O'Kelly. Okay. He's been there in 2023. He was hired. He came from Home Depot, HD Supply, Petro Choice. I don't even know what Petro Choice is. He didn't come from the automotive space. I think this is a bad move, if I'm being honest. I think this is the wrong move if I'm Advanced. A $2.1 billion sales number to your P&L. I mean, unless there was like, oh my gosh, something's going on. Something's majorly wrong. We can't figure it out. Right. I think that's a mistake, personally.
Yep. Yeah, no, it very well could be. That's a huge number, and I was just reading as well, if we're talking about these aftermarket parts, a lot of it now is because vehicles are aging, right? I mean, we look at that. People are keeping their vehicles a lot longer. They can't afford to buy a new one. The interest rates are high. So they're holding on to their vehicles, which is, I think, creating a surge in people purchasing, these aftermarket parts. So it'll be interesting to see in the upcoming years if that takes a dip, if interest rates lower, the vehicles are getting older, and you're going to start to see, I think, a large amount of people purchasing a new vehicle. And are those new vehicles then going to be EVs? I think that could be an interesting question. And I think you might start to see that over the next few years, quite an influx. Your car is 10, 15, whatever, 20 years old, let's say, for example, and you're thinking, okay, right, I can finally own a new car. It's my dream. I can finally buy a car. What car are you going to go to now? I mean, it's kind of a good question, especially if, you're living in the city or lived in the suburbs. You want to be cool and hip. I think a lot of them will go towards, an EV. So I would say, as consumer confidence grows with better batteries, with more charging stations, with, the technology is a lot more solid inside. I think next year, 2025, 2026, you're going to see a significant increase.
Well, sales. And I also think as we watch automakers kind of pull back on their production of EVs, it's because the supply in the market is relatively high. So, well, what happens when there's an oversupply of product in the marketplace? Naturally, your prices are going to be pulled down, right? So, I think you're right. If we do, I don't know if we're going to see a change of power or not in North America from a political perspective. But if we do, my guesstimate would say if a Republicans win House, you'd probably see a lot of tax breaks kind of go down. And I think people would be re-energized by that original Trump model where it was like, okay, more money in my pocket, lower the interest rates at every cost. So I think you would actually, people feel more rich. People would feel, oh yeah, I can go buy the new thing. And that may be, I think that's a very good point. And I think that could happen to where we start to see that EV now price point begin to decrease because of an oversupply. So that could potentially move the needle a little bit. Yeah, that's very, very much possible. So I think, but the reality of is it's your options are either an EV if you're going to a new car or a hybrid. I think the only internal combustion engine vehicles is obviously becoming a thing of the past. Because we're seeing that already, right? We're seeing the shift to the hybrids. But I don't know. I mean, I'll see. And who knows? And, Stephen O'Kelly, the CEO, I mean, maybe he hit a home run. I could be so wrong on this. I actually kind of, I hope I am. I just know that the distribution business in automotive is rock solid, right? Rock solid. Like, it shows up every month, every quarter. Like you typically don't lose the business. Because there's only an infinite amount of demand and opportunity. But we are seeing buying behaviors change, right? I think the online digital transformation is changing the way people are buying parts. So, well, what happens there? Not like, think of when Amazon came around, right? All of those small mom and pops, and you only would go shop wherever your local store was. But then the resurgence of a digital experience. Well, I don't even know where my shit's coming from half the time, right? That's why you look at the Sears model, you look at the Foot Locker model, you look at all of these different models where, okay, all of even Bed Bath and Beyond, right? I can't buy her. But they turned into more of a distribution model. So same products without that consumer facing, because they're saying we can reach that consumer online. So I think we're going to continue to see something down that path. But I just, to make a big nut like that, we know there's a 3.5% CAGR. It's a $137 billion market in the U.S. And you just gave up 1% of that market. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Who knows?
And, if you're a manufacturer, getting this kind of question for you, when do you think, if I'm sitting there and I'm a manufacturer of some component for, ICE engine, and I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, I know the end is near for me. I'm, again, the Kodak camera, that takes film, thinking, fuck me, the end is inevitable. It's coming. They're no longer going to need this fucking part in a few years. The end is there. Do I sell the company now? Who's going to want to buy it? My part's going to be obsolete within 10 years. Do I look at switching my manufacturing processes to, something that, these new vehicles, the new EVs and stuff like that can take? But that's just not a flick of a switch. You're not changing a machine that makes fucking, nuts and bolts into a machine that makes brakes for an EV, overnight. So what do you think those guys are thinking now? Or what do you think their runway is?
Well, you've got to be forward visionary. You have to be I can't remember the CEO's name I was talking to, but we were actually at SEMA and Apex last year, and we were walking the floors, just talking a lot, man, about the industry and he actually said to me, it was kind of unsolicited. I love talking about this stuff, anyways, but he says, if EV was the big, everyone's in EV, right? He said if EV flipped the switch like today. Boom. 80% of the market's EV, 10% is an internal combustion engine or an ICE. He goes, 70% of the companies would not be here.
Right. That's correct.
That's significant.
Right.
That one of the top automotive parts shows in the world, SEMA and Apex, from a parts perspective, to say 70% of the companies would not be here is significant.
Right.
Well, what happens from there? You need the infrastructure for that change, right? You need the energy ability to support that. You need there's a lot of pieces from a infrastructure perspective that's happened over the last 100 years that you can't just make overnight, right?
Right.
I don't care what policies to put in place. I don't care what Pete Buttigieg says about whatever in transportation. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If that's not there, it's not going to support itself. So,
Yeah.
I think you have a runway. I think seeing automakers move away or like slow down on the EV side is positive for you, but I think you have to take what your niche is in the category that you support, whether you're on the whatever you are, the performance side, whatever, you have to be thinking ahead in what gets you excited, right?
Right.
Because
And what parts are crossing over? Even, you know, if you've got a Tesla EV and you've got a Ford EV, what parts really fit in both those vehicles? It's not like the ICE engines now, or, you know, these vehicles now. You know, I think you've got a very small set of parts really that's, you know, compatible with both of these sort of models and these
yeah, I mean
manufacturers.
the very base level stuff,
You know,
suspension,
tires,
brakes, tires,
brakes, exactly.
suspension,
Yeah.
brake, tires, right?
Right.
Those are the replaceable items. And so if you look at, well, companies that are in suspension, brake, tires, it's
Right.
very easy shift, right?
Yep.
Okay, now we just focus on suspension, brake, tires, but focused on the EV, right?
Right.
Regenerative braking. So if you look at a Tesla, in many cases, they actually go through one pair of brake pads for 100,000 miles because it's regenerative braking. And
Right.
so when you look at the wear and tear on that part, well, it's a little bit different. There's a new company out there called Pure Edge, and actually, this is a non-sponsored post, by the way, guys. But if you look at Pure Edge, actually, I think they're doing some really cool shit. They're a brake rotor company. They're new in the game. They have pulled their metal technology. It's coming from like, medical professionals have those scapulas to do like surgeries, is really sharp, really like hard metal. They've
Yep.
taken that same chemical compound and pulled it into a rotor, right?
That's right. We spoke to these guys a few months ago. I remember
Yeah,
this.
you
Yeah.
remember that.
I
Yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah,
this
yeah,
call now.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And I thought it was really brilliant. And so again, they're a younger company, but like be on the lookout for those type of guys, you know?
Absolutely.
If you look at
Because a lot
that
of people.
combined,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, fuck, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we've seen, and I've noticed online, we've talked to a number of companies that have really jumped on the Tesla bandwagon. You know, whether it's, you know, performance stuff, whether it's brakes, whether it's, you know, accessories for inside the vehicle. But a lot of people really, and this was, you know, a few years ago, that really started manufacturing and producing stuff specifically for Tesla. Because I think they were hedging their bets that Tesla is the future of EV and most people are going to be buying Teslas. So there's been quite a few companies that we've spoken to that have said, okay, right, we're going to continue to manufacture. We're going to take this perspective and we're going to make it specifically for Tesla models.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tesla's going to be a winner. I mean, I think
Yep.
they're already a winner. I think
Sure they are.
building a product line around the Tesla is probably smart.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Rivian's a high-end market in the SUV market in EV. I think they're going to win with that partnership with Volkswagen. I think they're actually going to blow. I think they're going to do well.
Right.
A lot of others I think are not going to do well. But yeah, I think finding niches around what you think the future is. But again, there's still a need. Okay, the average age of a vehicle of a passenger car is 14 years, right? That's how old a passenger car is right now today. It's 14 years on average. The truck, the small mid-sized truck, is 11.6. Okay,
Right.
so that kind of is telling, right? On average is I think 12.7 or something like that.
Yep.
So we still have a 10-year runway of aftermarket parts, I think, at least, right? And if we look at the data that says, the last I think I checked out on it was there was like 6% adoption on EV, but we're seeing basically the graph kind of cross. So like EV was outpacing the hybrid, I think largely due to political pressures and rebates and all kind of the bullshit.
Yep.
But what we've seen is the EV basically take a sharp decline as of recent, and actually we've seen the hybrid tenfold just outpace them. Right now, that's a reaction, right? That's not a steady trend. So reactionary data is really hard to say why, right? Reactionary data to me always says somebody tried to manipulate the market, right? Somebody tried to push their power to a point where we manipulated it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that was the government pressures and your Greta Thunberg saying you're going to kill the environment. And then the government got behind it, and then they got votes, and then they got voted in. So then, I don't, if it's if it's an outlier of data, it's typically, it's not, there's nothing that supports a steady growth trend. So, but I think if you're a manufacturer, I mean, back to your original question, you have to understand your category. Okay. And if you're like, shit, my category's toast, you have to reinvent yourself.
Right. Exactly.
There's just no other way around it.
Right. Yep. No, exactly. Yeah. Or look to be acquired, look to sell, look to partner, look to, one of these options. You have to be looking at that now, I would say.
Absolutely.
100%,
Absolutely.
And not wait. Yeah. I think if you wait 2-3 years, you're going to be dead in the water. You're going to be way behind these other guys. So no, I think that's a very valid point.
Well, and I found it pretty interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but Piedmont Lithium, so they were turning to international ventures. If they turned to Piedmont Lithium was basically set up to run lithium batteries, right? Kind of more on the U.S. market, right?
Yep.
But I found it pretty interesting. I was reading that article. Is they turned to international ventures, right? So originally set up more for kind of a North America based opportunity, right? We're homegrown. They're actually looking at more international mining as opposed to US. I thought that was pretty interesting to see that. I don't know where that, again, I think that's a little bit of politically driven pressures as well. Again, it was because that was highly tied to the Inflation Reduction Act, which provided them $11.8 billion, $7 billion in funds, right? So again, we're seeing the data that potentially has a spike in it, but it's an energy loan program, man. Like I can only feed you bullshit until your true colors are just your true colors.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so I think those are common. It's common. I think that's a lot of common pieces where we've seen a lot of these spikes in data and investments kind of move around, because what's going to happen is the distribution model is going to follow it. So I don't know what Advance saw, but I think they obviously said something like, we don't want a $2.1 billion top line revenue that turns into $100 million in EBITDA on our balance sheet. And they said, fuck it, we're out. So, but maybe it's smart. I just don't think it. I don't know. I don't think it is.
And how many of these manufacturers now are going to go just directly to consumers as well? Over the next few years.
Yeah,
and cut out distributors altogether. And auto parts stores for that matter. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time. When you've got, let's say, these small independent auto stores, I mean, that model just really, that's not working anymore. And I'm not even talking that model. And taking that perspective, let's say from around the world, living here in the Philippines, for example, one of the things I find most frustrating is if I want bread, I have to go to a baker. Like literally, if I go to the grocery store, a lot of the grocery stores don't have bread. I've got to go to the baker. And if I want meat, I have to go to the butcher. And if I want vegetables, I have to go to the market. And all these places are in different locations, which, back in North America and, Europe and wherever else, many other places in the world, you walk into the Walmart superstore and, while I'm grocery shopping and buying a new outfit, I've got my, tires getting changed on the car and I'm playing a video game in the back and I'm, you're doing all these different things all at once. And that's what people expect now, is that convenience, ease. But if we're looking at an e-commerce perspective, I think, that model is going to be flipping as well, where these manufacturers are going to go direct to consumer or some sort of e-commerce platform, middle guy, an online, e-tailer type model.
Well, okay, that's a good question. The reason I actually do not believe warehouse distributors are going to be cut out is for what you just described.
Right.
What you just described. If you go to the Walmart or wherever, you could do 500 things at once. Okay.
Yep.
If I want a really good outfit, like a really high quality outfit, I don't go to Walmart.
Right.
If I want a really good high quality piece of meat, steak, Wagyu, flown in from Japan, I don't go to Walmart.
Right.
if I want the most premium service of whatever, I don't go to Walmart, right?
Right.
I go to Walmart because it's a one-stop and I can get everything that I need and it services my needs and I can get out there in one stop.
That's right.
The reason why I think it's very difficult for manufacturers to cut out a distributor is a few reasons. 85, 95% of people do not work on their own vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So when their vehicle shows up to a repair facility, whether it's a dealer service lane or whether it's an independent repair shop, that part needs to be readily available in a good, better, best option within 2 hours.
Yep.
Manufacturers typically will have 2, 3, 4 warehouses across the country, right?
Yep.
They are set up to supply the distribution that can get that part to that little independent repair shop very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that's not going to change, we know there's a digital growth curve with digital transformation, 100%.
Right.
Now, if there is a decision that is based on time, it will go through a B2B. If you have 2, 3, 4, 5 days leeway, that order will likely be placed through that order platform and be fulfilled by the manufacturer potentially or distributor up to them. Right. So I actually think it's a combination, but because of, for example, when I buy a new golf club or if I buy a new shirt, I don't need it right now. I don't. Right. I don't need it right now. Now, like, but if I buy, if my car is broken and I have to go to work or I have to get my daughter to go get her some new underwear because she shit herself again, I have to get that part ASAP. That's right. So that's why I think when you look at that model, it certainly is going to evolve. If you're not thinking about your digital strategy as a manufacturer today, you're dumb. Like, I'll tell you right to your face.
100%.
Like, because it is changing. Buying behaviors are changing. We see the market moving. What we are seeing is more international manufacturers looking to come into the U.S. market and grow the market with little overhead. And I think that model is there because they can leverage distributors, right?
Yep.
And they can drive margin there. So I think that's a loaded question.
Yep.
And I think we'll see where it plays out. But I think the distributors, manufacturers have tried to cut them out before, but they lose that small guy that buys $50,000, $100,000 a month.
Yep.
And those guys are important.
Yep. And how many people now, I mean, I just thought of my time living in the Middle East, and this is somewhat automotive related, but there was a company that was starting up there. And I believe it was when I was in Dubai, that was starting up in Dubai, and they were actually, and I thought this was fucking brilliant. I don't know why I've never heard of this. Maybe you've already heard of it, but they were delivering gasoline and filling up your car at night while you were sleeping. So you just had a subscription. These guys are driving around with a gas truck at night and filling up your vehicle with gas so that you wake up in the morning and you've got a full tank of gas. And I thought this is absolutely fucking brilliant. I don't have to go, to the gas station. My wife, if we're living, in Canada or whatever, is not nagging at me. Did you fill it with gas? It's minus 40 below. I'm going to freeze my ass off to go and get gas. But even a lot of these models now, there's tons of shops I know from, particularly even living in Asia, that they will come to you and they'll do whatever repair is needed on your premises, bring you the part exactly that you need. And again, the expectation now is not days. It's hours, or maybe if you're lucky, they'll give you till tomorrow to get the part, the average consumer. And I'm the same way. If I want something, I want it now. If I decide I want a TV, if I call, I'm looking online and I look at 3 different places and one says 3 days, one says 2 days, one says same day. And the one for same day is, let's say, an extra $100 or an extra $200. I'm not waiting 3 days. I'll be like, fuck it. If I can get it today, I'll pay the premium. I'll pay the extra. And I think that's where these manufacturers and these distributors, they need to be smart logistically, because people are willing to pay that premium, and these garages are willing to pay the premium, and do-it-yourself guys are willing to pay the premium just because they want that part, and they're willing to pay the extra.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I think geographics, right?
Yeah.
Are you metropolitan? Are you in the, suburbs? Are you, more? I think a lot of that has a lot to do with those kind of factors.
Yep.
But I think that they all play into the bigger picture.
Hmm.
I think they support, what is the future? I hate to even say Amazon because they're annoying, but Amazon's perfected it, right? I mean,
100%.
they've perfected that. What does that model look like? Where do you
Yep.
strategically put your hubs? Where do you place, you know, your pens on the map so that you're uber successful in touching all shipping zones within one day?
Right.
So I think if we can get like, and here's also why I think when you look at distributors, why they're important is they have a very large distribution fleet. So whenever you look at a manufacturer, like if I'm a big manufacturer and I'm like a monster, I want to leverage as much labor, effort, and money that I don't own, right? I want to leverage as much as I possibly can leverage. So
Yep.
if I could sell a part to somebody in the middle of Nebraska and I have a distribution partner that actually has my products on the shelf, I take the sale, right? I collect the money. I then tell that distribution partner to go take that part and drop it off with their delivery fleet,
Hmm.
not incurring a UPS, FedEx, or shipping cost, a carrier cost. I'm going to do that. So I think
Yep.
when we look at the evolution of how this works, I think that's how you're actually going to see the distribution model happen in automotive.
Right.
Who's going to make it happen? I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot
Yep.
of companies out there and tech companies that are focused on this exact piece. But I think whenever you can begin to crack the ecosystem nut and bring it all together from manufacturer to distributor,
Yep.
manufacturers ultimately have more power. Now, as it pertains to what products you're building from a manufacturer, I think all of your performance and accessory manufacturers are 100% at risk. Now, it also brings the question, let's just say the market was completely EV or whatever, right? Well, do the internal combustion engines become more valuable, right?
Right.
Like classic cars. Classic cars is a big market. There's a big market in the classic cars, but
Yep.
not everybody has a classic car. So there's limitations. So
Correct.
I think that's a question that is to be determined on what you have to make as a manufacturer on what that looks like. I don't know the answer to that, but I certainly think you have to be thinking about innovating for sure.
100%. No, 100%. No, the e-commerce stuff is absolutely just going to blow up, and it's unique in the automotive industry as well when we're talking about all these different parts, because you've got all these different SKUs and serial numbers and types and sizes, and so it's a very unique. You're not just ordering a generic something or another. So I mean, these e-tailers, retailers, manufacturers, distributors, if they're looking at the e-commerce model, they got to make sure their catalogs are good, their catalogs are detailed, the measurements are correct, the data is correct, the aces and pies and stuff like that they've got on these sites are correct. Otherwise, I think you can go upside down in a hurry. If you've got a ton of parts, being sent back, incorrect parts being shipped, if the consumer goes on your site and he's like, what is this? I can't find the right part. I'm not sure if this is the right part or not because it doesn't have enough information. There's not, the correct pictures. They're not the correct dimensions. So, yeah, I think that's a major component. We see that, right? We see that all the time with companies, Gideon, that we talk to.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
you know,
I think also when you talk about the evolution of your business, the better presence you have digitally, like from an online presence, the easier it is to transition and shift, right?
Yep.
Because if I have a great trusted presence, the second I shift to maybe a different category that supports the vehicle,
Yep.
the easier it is that I'll have consumer recognition and consumer adoption.
That's right.
If I was known for, I don't know, blower motor or whatever, some particular part that's only on vehicles that are 2007 and later,
Right.
and I have that one or two product lines of categories, but all I'm doing is selling to basically old gearheads. That's a really high
Right.
risk move because
Yep.
to transition, when they transition out, you have no pivot point
Right.
anywhere. You can't pivot to anything.
Yep.
And that I think is really critically important. And I think another one, when you nailed it, whenever you just said your pies and aces. Again, if you have not invested in your catalog, just take a step back and invest in your catalog. That is critically important. Auto care is the standard behind pies and aces. Pies is the enrichment data. Aces is the fitment data. Without solid pies and aces data, no digital transformation can happen, right? Because that's the industry standard from platforms, and they intake that data. So I just think that's kind of an important pivot point that a lot of people probably are overlooking. But again, in order to evolve and shift, you have to have a digital presence. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, 100%. 100%. Well, I think we're coming up on time pretty much here, Gideon.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
And, but no, great discussion today. I think that was wildly useful for myself, and I think for our listeners. We'll continue to see these different areas evolve and grow. We'll stay on top of it. And make sure everybody, again, go to 2wautogroup.com. Some exciting announcements on there. And by the end of this week, again, we'll have the 2W Team Builder information on there. If you're looking to outsource any of your service offerings, staffing, get in touch with us. All the information will be on there, but 2wautogroup.com. And make sure you like, subscribe. What else you got, Gideon? Anything?
Yeah, man, been an awesome day. I'm going to go downstairs, make sure my daughter didn't she probably did. Outside of that, hey, man, it's really been awesome. Great episode. Again, we're going to come back at you every single week with these great little nuggets of knowledge. It is an awesome time to be in this industry. We are the voice of the industry. It's 2W guys at Auto Trends Podcast.